What's happening? So cool. Alright. I just got done watching this video. It's by the Coop. Status Coop.
Alrighty, so I am here with Russell. Russell lives in East Palestine. He's currently staying at the same hotel that I am here in Columbiana. A whole bunch of folks are staying here who've been displaced at this point and are staying here temporarily since the derailment has happened. I know Russell works right in East Palestine, real close to where the derailment is. I guess we'll start there. How long after the evacuation was over did it take for you to be back at work?
I missed work Monday and Tuesday. Went back Wednesday, and a gentleman I work with, and then all of a sudden she get goosebumps all over her body. I gotta get called out, I gotta fix it, I gotta be able to get into that room at any given time, didn't I?
So you go from having your farm, they put a dump right there, basically. Yep. So you lose the farm to having a dump right there. For folks watching, Negley is right next to East Palestine, basically. Then you moved to East Palestine, and now this happens.
Train lottery, yep.
So, I mean, it's obviously an impossible position to be in at this point.
I don't know what to do because nobody can answer any of the questions, and everybody's sitting around wanting answers. Nobody has the answers that you want. It's that simple. You're not going to get the answers to these questions because this has never happened before. How do you answer something that's never happened?
We've got a federal government that's got essentially unlimited resources.
They're a waste of time.
I agree, basically. They've got the resources to be able to buy everybody in East Palestine a new home like that. Last week, we just watched the Silicon Valley Bank thing fail, and it took less than 48 hours for them to come in and be like, you know what? Like, here you go. We're solving that problem. Here we go. But you all, it's been freaking 5 weeks. It's been 5 weeks, almost 6 weeks at this point. Probably 6 weeks tomorrow, I believe.
9 years, 10 years.
And you all still don't know what if you're ever going to be able to go back to your house. Most people I talk to are afraid to go back to their house, and nothing is being done. Nothing, no concrete answers are being given.
I'm not afraid to go back to my house. I'm afraid I'm losing my future. A house is a house, a couch is a couch. That's materialistic. Being able to be around with my wife as long as I want to, and my two wonderful kids, my grandson, that's something I've lost control of now. I mean, nobody knows when you're going to, come out of your house and get hit by a train. But, I mean, at this point, I mean, I at least had control of that. Now I don't because of all this. That's...
So, this is what I wanted to do. I just wanted to hit on that. So, what is dioxin, right? Because it was vinyl chloride. And if we check this out, let's do this first, right? Vinyl chloride burned byproduct. Right, phosgene. One of the byproducts of burning vinyl chloride is phosgene. Right, so we got phosgene, which was used for chemical warfare during World War I. I'm saying. They say it was a controlled burn, but yet it was a massive mushroom cloud. It's not controlled. Whoa, what the heck? How are those linked? Alright, so we know that one of them is phosgene, but I'm pretty sure dioxin was in there too. Butyl acrylate, carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide. Alright, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to Okay, check this out. That's not that. Oh, why are you taking so long to open the PDF? Okay, what's the deal? Right here. Alright, so phosgene. What is phosgene? So, phosgene is a colorless gas, COCl2, having an odor similar to mown or moldy hay, used as a poison gas and in making resins, plastics, and dyes. Carbonyl chloride used in synthesis of numerous substances. First World War, it was used in poisonous gas combat. Alternative form of carbonyl chloride. And there you go. So, here's the next question. How to break down dissimilate? I don't know, there's probably better words, right? Hydrogen chloride and carbon dioxide analogously upon contact with ammonia converts to urea. Halide exchange with nitrogen trifluoride and aluminum tribromide gives COF2 and SABO warfare. So carbon, so we're talking hydrogen chloride. Compound hydrogen chloride has the chemical formula hydrochloride. Hydrogen chloride. Okay, yeah, you know it's in your stomach. You know that. That's not what hydrogen chloride. Oh. Oui. Okay, so that's what's in the stomach, hydrogen chloride. I believe that's, yeah, hydrochloric acid. Okay, interesting. Should be acidic, right? So it's important production of precursors of polyurethanes and polycarbonate plastics. It's colorless gas. Smells like musty hay, suffocating odor. Melts at negative 118 Celsius or negative 180 Fahrenheit. Boiling point's 8.3 degrees Celsius or 46.9 degrees Fahrenheit. Not very high at all. It's insoluble and it reacts. So it's insoluble in water. But it's soluble in benzene. This is interesting. Soluble in benzene, toluene, acetic acid. Decomposes in alcohol and acid. So it decomposes in alcohol and acid. That's why they might have had alcohol, right? I heard they had alcohol. So alcohol might help decompose it. And acid does too. Interesting. So we got danger, man. Look at the pictograms. We got skull and bones. We got acid corrosion. And container gas. Pressurized container. I'm assuming this is the MSDS, the safety data sheet. If it loads. Hey, we got noise and translate, yes. Sprechen Sie sehr bitte durch. It's non-combustible. Again, this is phosgenes. It's identifications of carbonyl chloride, carbonyl dichloride, carbon oxychloride, carbonic dichloride, chloroformal chloride, and diphosgene. It's a chlorine compound. It's an inorganic gas. Gas liquefied under pressure, colorless, suffocating odor to stale hay. It's a non-combustible gas, soluble in water. I thought I said it was non-soluble. Okay. So it's soluble in water. It hydrolyzes. It reacts with water, forming hydrochloric acid and carbon dioxide. Take the oxygen out the water, kill the fish, right? Hydrochloric acid, well, that's acid. So it's murder. It's absolute. It's just two chemicals. You're talking anything acidic and lacking oxygen. There you go. That's cancer right there. That's killing. Gas is heavier than air, which means it'll be just traveling around where you're breathing. Good luck, right? Because this is right here, suffocating odor. Acute or chronic health hazards result from the substance hazardous to the aquatic environment and normal environment. It's the devil's juice, man. One of them. There you go. More information. Melting point. Already been through this. So we're going to continue. So it decomposes into chlorines, hydrochloric acid, and carbon dioxide, I think it was. Anyway, so risk of explosion in contact with alkali metals, tert butylazide formate. Substance can react dangerously with alcohols, which also, right, is used to, is the word disseminate or decompose or whatever. So amines, ammonia, oxygen, water, aluminium or light, silanes, ethylene, 2,4-hexadin, 1,6-diol, hydrazine, sodium, heat at 260 degrees Celsius, steam, sodium azide, hydrogen phosphide, hydrogen silicide, and vinyl methyl ether. So the main pathway of intake of carbonic dichloride phosgene proceeds via the respiratory tract. That's the main route of exposure. And it's toxic, and because of its poor solubility in water, despite the high sensibility for hydrolysis, vapors reach the alveoles to a great extent unchanged, and there they react with NH2 negative and OH negative and SH negative groups of proteins and enzymes in the alveolar membranes, so in the lungs and the alveoli. The hydrolysis to form hydrochloric acid and carbon dioxide takes place in parallel. Relevant amounts unchanged. P penetrate the membranes only at very high exposure concentrations, react immediately with the constituents of the blood. Therefore, an absorption of systematic distribution in the usual sense is not to be assumed. No studies on the absorbability through the skin are available. However, based on reasoning mentioned above, an appreciable absorption of the vapors via the skin is not considered to be relevant. The relationships for contact with undercooled liquid are not accessible. So you got the gastrointestinal tract, you got the unintentional oral intake, which seems to be okay. So main toxic effects: acute irritative effects of the mucous membranes, damage to the lung, sequelae from resulting hypoxia, chronic damage to the lung. Physiochemical properties are acute toxic reactions, gaseous appearance under normal conditions, and the commonly used safety precautions during handling the highly toxic substance. Possibilities of exposure are limited to inhalation. Okay, so anyway. So, from the experiencing of large numbers of cases of inhalation poisoning with phosgene and the particular uses of poisonous gas during World War I, and from animal experiments, it was concluded that Haber's CXT rule is well applicable. The concentration level between 2 and 2,000 parts per million. At this level, the concentration in parts per million is decisive for toxic effects, to a lesser extent to the dose in parts per million minutes. For exchanges or damage to the tissues from the airways, bronchioles, and alveoli are expected between 30 parts per million minimum of concentration greater than or equal to 0.15 parts per million. So this is in the lungs. There you go. So we got reproductive toxicity, mutagenicity, and carcinogenicity, or maybe not. It says there is no reason to fear risk damage to the developing embryo or fetus. Interesting. Although pregnant women suffered from a pulmonary edema caused by phosgene first month, this event did not influence the state of her health of her child. The signal case is insufficient for assessment. However, the physicochemical properties of phosgene, a systematic action and therefore a reproductive toxic potential, was excluded at the level of tolerable exposure concentration. Mutagenicity. In the only microbiological test available to date, phosgene did not show genotoxic properties. No data for humans is available. Insufficient data is available. See what I'm saying? Of course there isn't, but we're going to use it everywhere. And just drop it off train tracks. Alright, let's continue on. I know it gets boring, but we got to do it. So, toxicity of the pyrolysis and combustion products of polyvinyl chlorides in literature assessment. So this is on a government website, nist.gov, publications, and vinyl chlorides literature assessment. There you go, publications, toxicity, pyrolysis, combustion products of vinyl chlorides and literature assessment. Polyvinyl chlorides, or PVC, constitute a major class of synthetic plastics. Major surveys of the development... See, I could have been doing this. Probably been appreciated. Right? Sorry. The report reviews literature published in English from 1969 to 84. And more interpret the most... Sorry, I'm getting confused because I'm thinking about whether or not I should restart the video. Because it could be bad, right? So... Anyway, let's just continue. The report reviews the literature published in English from 1684. So, the PVC compounds in general are among the most fire-resistant compound organic polymers, natural or synthetic. The major product of thermal decomposition, including hydrogen chloride, benzene, and unsaturated hydrocarbons, in the presence of oxygen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and water, are included among the common combustion products. The main toxic products of PVC fires are hydrogen chloride, a sensory and pulmonary irritant, a carbon monoxide asphyxiant. So asphyxiate and it'll kill you, suffocate you. The LC50 or lethal LC50, that's like lethal carbonation. I don't know, that's like breathing or something. The LC50 values are calculated for series of natural and synthetic materials thermally decomposed according to the NBS toxicity test method range from 0.045 to 57 milligrams per liter in the flaming mode and 0.45 to no less than 40 milligram per liter in the non-flaming mode. So the LC50 results for PVC resin decomposed under the same conditions for 17 milligrams per liter in the flaming mode and 20 milligrams per liter in the non-flaming mode. These results indicate that PVC decomposition products are not extremely toxic when compared to those of other common building materials. When the combustion toxicity based on the HCl content of PVC materials is compared with pure HCl experiments, it appears that much of the post-exposure toxicity can be explained by the HCl that is generated. So the biggest effect is hydrochloric acid, the HCl, and the carbon monoxide. So I mean, it's not good, but it's not sounding as bad. This ain't wanting to download. Come on now. Continuing on. So East Palestine soil contains dioxin levels hundreds of times over cancer risk threshold. I certainly wouldn't be comfortable living there, said one organic chemist. Wow, where was that? So release of data showing this. Let's see this. It's on the Guardian, U.S. News, Norfolk Southern Training Environment. The data shows that the soil of Ohio East Palestine seen. I gotta call him out now. So yeah, the EPA, right, has proposed lowering the cleanup threshold to reflect the science around the highly toxic chemical, but Obama administration killed the rules. Of course, you know you can download it. So approximately 7 billion pounds of PVC resins were produced in the United States in 1984. Imagine that. George Orwell. Okay. More than half of the amount, which corresponds to the average of about 30-pound person, used in building products, including pipe and fittings, flooring, siding, a wide variety of construction products. PVC is a possible source of fuel in unwanted fires. In a number of fires, injuries to firemen and building occupants have been attributed to its thermal decomposition or composition products. Thus, together, the PVC's wide distribution has led to numerous studies of natural products of occurrence of fires and physiological effects of living organisms. It is to be expected that the thermal decomposition of properties of the composition of the products of commercial items identified as PVC or vinyl chloride, also used in, I think it's polyvinyl chloride, but anyway, depending on the nature of the amount of additives contained in the formulation. Nevertheless, a certain consistency of behavior is discerned that focuses on the properties of PVC homopolymer and considers the further effects of additives on this basic behavior. It has a relatively poor thermal stability, beginning to lose hydrogen chloride slowly in the neighborhood of 100 degrees Celsius. The reaction is believed to start at imperfections in the polymer chain. Tertiary chlorine atoms, allylic chlorides, and various oxygenated structures have been suggested. The reaction appears to be weakly autocatalytic. Thermal stabilizers react preferentially with weak points in the polymer chain, preventing the development of autocatalytic process. See, I like this because, yeah, it's complicated, but I can look these words up and learn more about it. And when they make stuff so easy to understand, they can obfuscate and convolute, and not just, they can abuse and manipulate and, belittle and beyond, right? So I like to know these words and stuff because it helps educate myself and others, right? It's good to know these things. So, yeah, the thermal stabilizers react. Okay, I already read that. Through the use of stabilizers, useful service temperatures can be achieved. The pyrolysis and oxidation of PVC have been studied by a number of investigators. Woolley and O'Mara have given the most detailed accounts and have summarized early work. The report's results depend on the particular formulation used, and close agreement is not to be expected between investigators. However, a fairly consistent pattern of behavior emerges. Stabilized PVC resins begin to lose HCl slowly, when heated to about 200 degrees Celsius. The rate of HCl evolution decreases with temperature, becoming fairly rapid at 230 degrees Celsius. By 300 degrees Celsius, the dehydrochlorination is very rapid and results in almost quantitative evolution of HCl. Woolley reports activation energies for dehydrochlorination reaction of 174 kilojoules mole to the -1 and 151 kilojoules per mole to the -1. I think that's proper, I don't know. And nitrogen and air, respectively, indicating the rapid increase of reaction rate with temperature. So Kj, right, lowercase k, capital J, per mole. Evolution of HCl results in unsaturation in the polymer chain. The dehydrochlorination appears to progress in stepwise fashion along with the polymer chain to produce conjugated unsaturation. This leads to color formation in the residue and cyclization reactions producing benzene and related compounds. Both Mickle and Woolley have found that 70 compounds among the thermal decomposition products of PVC resin. Table 1 lists those products identified by Michael and PVC some vinyl copolymers. Among those identified were aromatic hydrocarbons, unsaturated hydrocarbons, and chlorine-containing compounds. Benzene was one of the most prevalent organic products, amounting to several percent of the original sample weight. Others were present in such smaller amounts. Let's go through this. What was found? Come on, zoom in. Carbon dioxide, chloromethane, cyclopentane, cyclopentadiene, cyclohexadiene, benzene, toluene, dioxane, xylene, styrene, methyl, styrene, indene, naphthalene, wow, naphtha, eh? Butadiene, vinyl chloride, acetaldehyde, methylcyclopentene, chlorobenzene, divinylbenzene, cyclopentene, trichloroethylene, chloroethane, chloropropene, propanol, methylethylcyclopentane, trimethylcyclopentane, methylcyclohexene, methylindane, cyclohexene, trimethylbenzene, dichloroethylene, acrylonitrile, hydrogen cyanide, acetonitrile, dichloroputadiene, dichloropentene, trichloropropane, dichlorobenzene, trichlorobenzene, p-chlorobenzonitrile, dichlorobenzonitrile, dichloropropene, methacrylate, trimethylpentene, dichlorobutylene, dichloropentadiene, dichlorocyclopentane, benzaldehyde, trichlorobutylene, chloropyridine, N-propylbenzene, chlorobenzonitrile, dichlorotoluene, p-dichlorobenzonitrile, methylnaphthalene, chloronaphthalene, triterobutylmethylphenol, chloroestrine, diphenyl, tetradecylene, pentadecylene, dichloroethylbenzene, diphenthylethane, diterdibutylmethylphenol. I'm not going to go on. There's a lot. So my family's getting back here. Might hear that, but I'm going to continue. Might be drinking, having a good time, so it might be a little loud too, but There's a lot of information in this document. No. Chloroethylene, ethylene monochloride. Can harm you and kill you. Should be the EPA Great Lakes says the same air mining thing. Dead fish in the rivers dying. Lack of oxygen and the acidity. Just like in us. Imagine that. Officials said controlled burn of vinyl chloride could send phosgene, a highly toxic gas that can cause vomiting and breathing trouble. Hydrogen chloride, which can irritate human skin, eyes, nose, throat, and into air. Over 3,500 fish dead, man. $2,000 gallons of vinyl chloride spilled in Poulsboro in 2012. There you go. Lawmakers have long tried to overhaul the Toxic Substances Control Act, a 1976 law that is designed to protect humans and the environment from industrial toxic chemicals, but in reality contains many loopholes to keep the government from effectively regulating chemical companies. Just like how they can inject your ass with a vaccine and you can't sue them for it, whatever happens. Okay, so what is dioxin? Any of several carcinogenic, mutagenic, or tetragenic, polychlorinated heterocyclic or aromatic hydrocarbons that can occur in impurities in petroleum-derived herbicides and byproducts of manufacturing chemicals and burning fuels and wastes. So it's any broad range of toxic or carcinogenic, halogenated, polycyclic compounds that occur in byproducts of herbicides. The parent compound, dibenzo-p-dioxin, in which two benzene rings are connected via two oxygen atoms, oxantherine. The unsaturated six-membrane heterocycle having 4 carbon atoms, 2 oxygen atoms, and 2 double bonds. Any of several toxic or carcinogenic hydrocarbons that occur in impurities in herbicides. 1,2-dioxin or 1,4-dioxin, 2 unsaturated heterocyclic 6-membered rings or 2 carbon atoms have been replaced by 2 oxygen atoms, given the molecular formula C4H4O2, dibenzo-1,4-dioxin. The parent compound, also known as dibenzodioxin, and dibenzo-p-dioxin, in which 2 benzene rings are connected through 2 oxygen atoms. Dioxins and dioxin-like compounds, a diverse range of chemical compounds which are known to exhibit dioxin-like toxicity. 2, 3, 7, 8 tetrachloro dibenzodioxin, the prototypical example of the above class, often referred to as simply as dioxin. Right, and we can go to Wikipedia. We could go more, right? There you go, that was most of it, eh? So let's continue. So that's about massaging. So mushrooms. I'm going to skip to this. Mushrooms can clean up this toxic mess, including plastics. Why aren't they used more, right? These are PVC, these are polychlorinated vinyl chloride compounds, right? chloride can be broken down with, I believe, boron. Boron breaks down these, I believe, iodine as well, which is good against fluorosis and fluoride neurotoxin and waste product chemical pollutions that they put in the water in the municipal supplies. But I digress. I live, I don't die. I'm digressing. But, yeah, so the blaze generated an untold amount of potentially dangerous ash that remains incarcerated hazards. What is this? This is something else. Oh, okay. I gotcha. Okay. So the blazes generated an untold amount of potentially dangerous ash, the remains of incinerated hazardous household waste building materials. They charred detritus of paint, pesticides, cleaning products, electronics, pressure-treated wood, propane tanks, left a range of pollutants in the soil, including arsenic, asbestos, copper, hexavalent chromium, lead, and zinc. Officials feared runoff of the toxic ash could pollute local creeks once the rainy season hit, potentially tainting the drinking water supplying the region's 700,000 residents. So going on, to remediate it, they got ecological activists mobilized. The Fire Remediation Action Coalition placed in 40 miles of wattle, straw-filled, snake-like tubes designed to prevent erosion, inoculated with oyster mushrooms around the parking lots, along roads and across hillsides. Their plan? The tubes would provide makeshift channels, diverting runoff from the sensitive waterways. The mushrooms would do the rest. The volunteers led Sebastopol-based landscape professional Eric Holson, and advocates for mycoremediation, experimental bioremediation technique that uses mushrooms to clean up hazardous waste, harnessing their natural ability to use enzymes to break down foreign substances. In the last 15 years, fungi enthusiasts and so-called citizen scientists have developed mushrooms to clean up oil spills in the Amazon, boat fuel pollution in Denmark, contaminated soil in New Zealand, and polychlorinated biphenyls, and more commonly known as PCBs, in Washington State's Spokane River. Imagine that. See, here's things that we could be talking about and doing. See, mushrooms, it's like they demonize cows and they make it like, dude, all these animals could be free and roaming, but we gotta have our roads. Hey, I'm not hating on your trucks, but animals used to be free and we used to be free. Now everything's fenced, farmed, and caged, so you want to argue, keep it up. You know, let's be real here. We're using polychlorinated biphenyls, and you don't even know how to even say that probably. You know, I'm just saying mushrooms. Come on. Stop being such a mycophiliac. Right? Be biophiliac. Or, you know, actually that's a good thing, I think, being a mycophiliac. But, yeah, anyway, don't be scared of mushrooms. So, yeah, here we go. So, researchers suggest mushrooms can convert pesticides and herbicides to more innocuous compounds, remove heavy metals from brownfield sites, and break down plastic. They have even been used to remove and recover heavy metals from contaminated water. It's the root of mycelia that do all the work. You got Paul Stamets talking about this stuff. Paul Stamets is really intelligent, and he's a mycologist, been doing it for years, and shout outs to Terrence McKenna on the psychoactive effect of things in the hallucinogenic, area. But continuing on, it's in the root, it's in the mycelia. It does all the work. Daniel Reyes, founder of Austin, Texas-based science and education company Myco Alliance, referring to a thread-like network of roots that connect species of fungi. Compared to an apple tree, the mushroom we see growing above ground is the apple. In the mycelium is the tree itself. Mycologists focus on the mycelium, he says. Mycelia consume their food externally by secreting powerful enzymes that break down molecules. In other words, they digest whatever substrate or surface they're growing on, converting it to nutrients and, depending on the substrate, edible mushrooms. Proponents say it's natural, more benign, potential cheaper alternative to scrape and burn approach to environmental cleanup, which involves digging up contaminated soil and incinerating it. Right? My stepdad's a firefighter, right? Or he's a mechanic for the firefighters. So he's around the firefighters. He's around the fires. And what they're saying right here is Proponents say it's natural, more benign, potentially cheaper alternative to the scrape and burn approach to environmental cleanup, which involves digging up contaminated soil and incinerating it. The problem with that traditional approach is that it removes potentially fertile topsoil, says Theresa Halula, who teaches mushroom cultivation in Merritt College in Oakland, California. Bioremediation, on the other hand, she says, can help clean up toxic sites, which actually are improving soil fertility. So why isn't microremediation a more common practice? Well, current microremediation solutions simply work too slowly to be embraced in industrial scale. One reason, Halula says, is the federal regulations require the removal of 100% of the targeted contaminants within a short frame. Current microremediation solutions simply work too slowly to be embraced on an industrial scale. In nature, mushrooms break down all the kinds of substances, and we're just beginning to look at this more closely in the lab and field studies, she says. But we don't yet speed the breakdown. Right, you got electricity going through the soil, which is killing a lot of the microbes and the worms and the insects and stuff vile, the microbacteria, all that small stuff. And it affects it to the macro, the big stuff, right? You got, subtle things that go a long way, like, boron helping the stalks and the structures, the cells, and calcium, magnesium for the uptake of other nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and sulfur, and all these good things, and some stuff they don't really talk about and go into, but you got ways to make this stuff better, like I've heard, I could look it up right now, right? So if we look this up, we're gonna be looking up insects don't attack healthy food. There you go. Advanced ego agriculture. This is what I've been trying to tell people, man. Like, we got people that do potato farms around here in northern Michigan and stuff, and I try to tell them, man, you're using herbicide, insecticide, pesticide, and that's suicide, genocide. Just attach it on there. Okay? You're destroying your everything around you and in you.
They are suffering. A lot of them.
So, anyway, I'm going to add this to my main playlist, which is on my YouTube channel. Open Eye Visuals. Right? While everybody's distracted with politics and money and all this other stuff, stress, I'm over here trying to educate people on what's more important. What's important? You need food. You need clean water and clean food. What's more important than that? Well, I gotta go make money, pay bills. Yeah, okay. But let's read what's more important. Look, there's more important stuff. They're killing us. You see the East Palestine, Ohio, what I'm going through right now, how they're not helping them, right? All this money's going to bail out the bankers, but they ain't bailing out people at East Palestine. These people just got Norfolk train, just dropped, chemicals on their doorsteps. If that was on your doorstep, what would you do? Just saying. Gotta reflect. Gotta step back. Gotta talk about this stuff. Or else people ain't gonna know how to fight back. And it's not about necessarily fighting, right? You don't gotta fight, you just gotta be educated and wise enough to know how to go about it. So there's no one fit size all for applying mushrooms to biohazard sites. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. I had to steal my water, by the way. Alright, so like subfields of bioremediation, microremediation has failed to attract such much investment. This is an inherent problem in the bioremediation industry, says William Mann, a microbiologist at the University of British Columbia who specializes in microbial degradation. We are not producing a product that the people want to buy. We are producing something that companies are sometimes forced to do. It's hard to make great business case for it, or quite frankly, a case for academic research. So he likens effective mushrooms to janitors with giant sets of keys, enzymes, that break down molecules. If you have one key, you might be a mushroom that will only grow on a very specific type of wood. Another mushroom from the same species could have a huge key set. Perhaps it could grow on oak, plastic, or oil, Cotter says. We want to screen the fungi with huge key sets to see what they can eat. Oil, herbicides, insecticides, and synthetic compounds. Beyond the work being done in these independent labs, enthusiastic amateurs are conducting their own projects in the field. According to the Cotter's lab partner, Leif Olson, it's happening out of necessity. People see all these environmental issues and they want to do something about it. They hear the oyster mushroom mycelia can clean contaminated water, and they are eager to practice this knowledge. McCoy founded the Radical Mycology Mycelial Network, an online community of so-called myco-evangelists, as an attempt to harness that enthusiasm. Members exchange information, uploading geotag photos of mushrooms taken in the wild for public research. So we got a lot of good research on the mushrooms, and more specific, the oyster mushroom and how it could help with remediation of the biohazards and our toxins in our environment, like these insecticides, herbicides, and ultimately the polyvinyl chlorides and the PCBs, whatever the PCB stands for again, So on to the next page. Right, there's a lot of documentation here. So microbial degradation of chitin, enzyme steps and mechanism. What is chitin? Chitin is a complex homopolysaccharide consisting of units of amino sugar, glucosamine, and what am I in here for? I don't know. Microbial degradation, that's why. Okay, so it's widely distributed in nature. It's found in the cell walls of fungi. There you go. Is it a link? Chitin. It's an abundant polysaccharide of nature after cellulose. It's widely distributed in nature and found in the cell walls of fungi, the exoskeleton of arthropods, and certain structures of invertebrates. Chitin, like cellulose, doesn't accumulate in the biosphere as a result of extensive hydrolytic activity of soil microorganisms. Chitin is associated covalently or non-covalently with the other structure molecules as well as the environment. The deacetylated derivative of chitin, called chitosan, has biomedical applications as it acts as an antimicrobial and hydrating agent. The conversion of chitin to chitosan is catalyzed either by enzymatic or chemical hydrolysis. The term chitin is derived from the Greek word chiton, which means a coat of mail. Depending on the source, chitin occurs in two forms, A and B formation. Third, less discussed, Y form is also known. The allomorphs differ from one another in orientation of microfibrils. Chitin is considered the essential polymeric structure due to its characteristics like high porosity, biodegradability, predictable degradation rate, and structural integrity. Chitin is similar to cellulose in that it is also indigestible by vertebrate animals due to the lack of enzyme system required for its degradation, but not in fungus. Right? The fungus, right? It's a part of fungus. But we can't break it down. Chitin is B-linked homopolymer, non-acetyl glucosamine, derived from the glucose, and it shares close structural similarity to cellulose. So we got a lot of information on this. Chitines are a group of glycosyl hydrolases that range in size of 20 kDa to 90 kDa and are found in a wide range of organisms like bacteria, fungi, yeast, plants, actinomycetes, and animals. Chitinaceae degrade chitin directly into smaller low molecular weight oligomers, which serve industrial, agricultural, and medical functions. Chitinaceae works by degrading the B1,4 linkages that exist between N-acetyl and glucosamine units to reduce the length of polymer, ultimately leading to formation of monomeric units. Chitinaceae are broadly subdivided into groups exochitonesis and endochitonesis. The endochitonesis split the polymeric chains at a random sites internally, thereby forming the dimeric units of the dicetyl chitobiose and soluble low molecular mass multimers and glucosamine and chitotriose and chitotetratose. So a bunch of chemical stuff here. I just wanted to go through it a little bit. It goes into microorganisms involved in chitin for degradation, chitolinic bacteria, archaeobacteria, chitolinic bacteria, Vibrio, Photobacterium, zooplanktons and carapaces, Vibrio, Photobacterium, Aeromonas, Cytophaga, Streptomyces, Photobacterium, Bacillus, Clostridium, and Chromobacterium as well-known chitinolytic bacteria. So there you go. The more common fungal species involved in chitinolysis include mucorales and Mortariella spp, deuteromycetes and ascomycetes like Aspergillus, Verticillium, Theolavia, Trichoderma, Penicillium, and Hemicola. Slime mold, protozoa, algae. So again, our nature takes care of us, but we pollute it, and we overdose it with all these chemicals from biochemical warfare companies. Anyway, continuing on, we got more research on how it goes, and got it. The biofilm, the bacteria build to protect themselves against attacks of the immune system. So, interesting. So enzymes found that can tear down bacterial biofilm walls. So a team of researchers from the US and Canada has identified 2 enzymes that have been proven to be able to break down bacterial biofilms, allowing antibacterial agents to more effectively kill their targets. The 2 enzymes are PSIG and PEIA, which are used in bacteria as part of wall building, serve as a means of creating sugar polymers, which serve as building blocks of sort, but they also help prevent the buildup of chains of sugars inside the cells of bacteria. It occurred to the researchers that because the biofilm walls also have a chain sugar component, the same enzymes might cause wall degradation. Just some more information on kind of fungus and how it can break stuff down. Necessary cookies only. So, what is the best way to break carbon bonds? I'm working through this homework. Remove a carbon constituent from cyclohexane, which I believe is one of the constituent compounds from the byproduct of polyvinyl chloride, or PVC, also recognized in the burning of the East Palestine, Ohio, Norfolk train derailment incident. So at high temperatures, formation of more substituted alkene will be favored. Catalytic components of base provide kinetic pathway for this rearrangement. OSO4 reacts a vicinal diol, while NaIO4 cleaves the CC bond and oxidizes the alcohol to carbonyls. Additionally, NaIO4 oxidizes HO to OSO2 back to OSO4, allowing the reaction cycle to continue. Okay, thanks. I didn't know how you could use base water to rearrange the double bond like that. Very helpful. Worth noting that OSO4 is a nasty and expensive chemical, which leads to the main benefit of using NaIO4 as a co-oxidant. You get to use OSO4 in catalytic quantities. So a lot of this is kind of over my head. So again, the question is, what is the best way to remove and break carbon-carbon bonds? I'll scroll down again. Here's the step 1 through 4. Here's a variation of Ringo's method. Treat the alkene with OSO4 or NaIO4 to obtain a cyclohexyl methyl ketone. Step 2. Convert the ketone to cyclohexyl acetate by using a peracid, or in quotations here, MCPBA. Right, we could web search that real quick. MCPBA is metachloroperoxybenzoic acid. Is a peroxycarboxylic acid, a white solid. It is used widely in an oxidant and organic synthesis. MCPBA is often preferred to other peroxy acids because of its relative easing of handling. MCPBA is a strong oxidizing agent that may cause fire upon contact with flammable material. So probably want to be careful doing this. Then you cleave the ester and oxidize the cyclohexanol to cyclohexanone with a mild oxidant, which we just read it was an oxidant. It said it said cleave the ester, then oxidize it. So there you go. So I can offer another 2-step synthesis. Isomerize the double bond of Ringo mentioned, and then step 2 is Craigie reaction, O3, which I believe is ozone, followed by workup with PPH3. Yeah, ozonolysis followed by reduction, elimination of water, next ozonolysis. Repeat till you have cyclohexanone. Looks like a best solution for me. So there's that. Scientists create superenzyme that eats plastic bottles and 6 times faster. This is a CNN article. Scientists have created a new superenzyme that can break down plastic bonds 6 times faster than the previous enzyme. A team of researchers previously re-engineered plastic-eating enzyme named PETase, have now combined it with the second enzyme to speed up the process, according to the press release in the University of Portsmouth. The superenzyme could have a major implication for recycling polyethylene terephthalate, or PET, which is the most common thermoplastic used in drinks, bottles, carpets, and clothing. So this is more plastic, right? More into kind of plastic bottles like PET, HDPE, chemical plastics. So this is on CNN. So the superenzyme combines PETase with MHETase, and a mixture of the two breaks down PET twice as fast as PETase on its own, while connecting the two enzymes increase the speed by a further 3 times. So McGeegan used a diamond light source, a device that uses X-rays 10 times billion times brighter than the sun, to be able to see individual atoms to map the molecular structure of MHETase. ASE. Researchers were then able to engineer the new superenzyme by connecting MHETA. So this is what I'm saying. If they can do this, why aren't we talking about it? Why aren't we focused on East Palestine, Ohio, and helping these people and everybody else that have contaminated water? These are things that we should be talking about, especially all these chemical people that support these chemical manufacturers, warfare, Roundup, Monsanto chemical, biochemical warfare, chemical companies. These people buying them, spraying them all over their potatoes, killing the soil. 10 years from now, you got MK Delta gonna steal your land. Steal? I mean, it's not yours to begin with. You're killing, whatever. Keep paying taxes. Anyway, wasn't ratified. Anyway, famguardian.org. Anyway, so Plastic pollution is one of the most pressing environmental issues. A recent report from the Pew Charitable Trust projected that a volume of plastic entering the ocean could nearly triple to 29 million metric tons per year by 2040, the equivalent of 50 kilograms for every meter of the planet's coastline. That's a lot. 50 kilograms for every meter? Well, there's 3.3 feet in a meter. 50 kilograms, well, there's how many pounds in a kilogram? I mean, there's 62 kilograms is about 140 pounds, right? So 50 kilograms, that's a lot of pounds, man. It's like over 100 pounds. 50 kilograms, around 100 pounds, right? By 2040, for every meter, that's every 3.3 feet on the planet's coastline is going to have around 100 pounds. So I want to continue this on how we could possibly clean up this plastic and chemicals that are hard to get rid of, right? The pyrolysis can address the polystyrene contaminant problem. Faulkner says that because the desired products vaporizes, the polymer breaks down, the valuable compounds could be separated from some of the dye's processing aids, pesticides, food contaminants during the reaction. Later separation steps are still needed, though. Heterogeneous thermocatalytic process turn plastic into different specialty chemical products. Dimondo says process requires lower temperatures than pyrolysis and gives company a high degree of control over what gets produced. So chlorine and polyvinyl chloride poses too much health and environmental risk for most recyclers, even the ones using mechanical recycling. And Dimondo says Green Mantra has not focused on PET because existing recycling processes are sufficient to keep large amounts of it out of the landfill. So unlike thermoplastics such as polyethylene, polystyrene, and polypropylene that could be melted and molded into new forms, thermoset polymers harden irreversibly thanks to covalent crosslinkers that bridge polymer strands. These polymers are increasingly used as resins and combined with carbon fiber or other materials to achieve tensile strength and elasticity that the polymers alone don't have. Makers of cars, planes, and turbine blades rely on these composite materials because they have their high strength to weight ratio. Unlike plastic bottles, these products don't get thrown away every day. But when their lifetimes do end, a lot of the thermoset polymer-based composites do get sent to landfills. Zhang showed he could dissolve resin and carbon fiber scraps from a major aircraft maker using ZnCl2-ethanol or zinc chloride 2-ethanol, catalyst at 250 degrees Celsius. His group recovered carbon fibers and uncross-linked oligomers from the resin. A scanning electron microscope showed that the fibers were still smooth, indicating that they were mostly undamaged by the process. Although Zhang says he was licensed some of his technology to a Chinese company and had interest from others, these methods are a long way from commercial applications. Such research could save the chemists a lot of trouble. Zhang developed a vitrimer based on eugenol, a renewable phenylpropene found in nutmeg, cinnamon, and other plants. Macromolecules 2017. When heated with ethanol and some zinc catalyst left over from the polymerization process, the vitrimer breaks down at its ester linkages. Zhang says he also experimented with lignin, which can be extracted from plants as a vitrimer. Robertson says key features she looks for in these bio-based molecules are convenient functional groups for conversion to epoxides and aromatic rings to provide strength, mimicking the chemical structure. These bisphenol A chemical epoxies and precursors of many resins. Some researchers have turned to the field of self-destructive or so-called self-immolative polymers developed in a new thermoplastic. Hemp, come on, man. We don't gotta be using this shit. So again, this guy has focused on ring opening reactions to synthesize polymers. Ring opening polymerization is a highly effective way of making high molecular weight polymers in a short period of time. He recently reported polymerization of a strained 2-ring monomer called 3,4-T6-GBO into either a linear or cyclic polymer, depending on the metal catalyst used. Using heat and a zinc chloride 2 catalyst, Chen and his team can return the polymer of 3,4-T6-GBO, a process they think can be repeated infinitely. So there's a lot of research in this field, a lot of stuff going on. In nature, different materials biodegrade at different rates. An apple core, bushel, right. Continuing on, beyond this. To be able to think about most microorganisms that assist in biodegradation need light, water, and oxygen. Again, to be able to work effectively, most microorganisms that assist in biodegradation need light, water, and oxygen. Right? We've heard high level of really bright light. You can see some of this stuff. Temperature is also an important factor in determining the rate of biodegradation. This is because microorganisms tend to reproduce faster in warmer conditions. So all food scraps are biodegradable. By putting scraps from fruit and vegetables in a compost bin, we reduce the amount of waste sent to a landfill. Even though food scraps are biodegradable, they are unable to break down in a landfill because of lack of oxygen, and the system prevents bacteria, fungi, and worms from working. Many products that are biodegradable in soil, such as tree trimmings, food waste, and paper, will not biodegrade when placed them in landfills because the artificial landfill environment lacks the light, water, and bacterial activity required to the decay process to begin. The Garbage Project is a study of waste conducted by a group of University of Arizona, USA. The project has unearthed from a landfill hot dogs, corn cobs, and grapes that were 25 years old and still recognizable, as well as newspapers dating back to 1952 that were still easily readable. So how fast do things biodegrade? This table shows the most common items that will break down and left in the environment. So from vegetables, from 5 days to a month, paper, 2 to 5 months, cotton t-shirt, 6 months, orange peels, 6 months, tree leaves, 1 year, wool socks, 1 to 5 years, plastic coated paper milk cartons, 5 years, leather shoes, 25 to 40 years, nylon fabric, 30 to 40 years, tin cans, 50 to 100 years, aluminum cans, 80 to 100 years, glass bottles, 1 million years, styrofoam cup, 500 years to forever, plastic bags, 500 years to forever. So plastic bags have been around for 50 years. Scientists know how they can, so how can they degrade it? To make long-term estimates, scientists often use respirometry, measuring the rate of carbon dioxide production or oxygen consumption of an organism. Sorry, my hand was on the mic. I don't know that I fucked it up. Sorry. Excuse my language too. But respirometry, measuring the rate of oxygen and carbon dioxide production or oxygen consumption of an organism or organic system test. The experimenters place a solid waste sample like a newspaper, banana peel, or plastic bag in a container of microorganism soil, then they aerate the mixture. Over the course of several days, microorganisms digest the sample bit by bit and produce carbon dioxide, resulting in an amount of CO2 serves as an indicator of degradation. So, some tests work well with newspaper, banana. Why? So, there's no CO2 production and no decomposition. When the scientists test plastic bags, nothing happens. Most common type of plastic shopping bag, the kind used at supermarkets, is made of polyethylene. Really? A person-made polymer that microorganisms don't recognize as food. So if there's no CO2 production for plastic and respirometry tests, where does the 500-year estimate come from? Although polyethylene bags don't biodegrade, they do photodegrade. While exposed to ultraviolet radiation from the sunlight, polyethylene's polymer chains become brittle and start to crack. This suggests that plastic bags will eventually fragment into microscopic granules. Scientists do know that many plastics break down into microplastics as of yet. However, scientists aren't sure how many centuries it takes plastics to completely break down and disappear. That's why some people give 500-year estimate, while others prefer a more conservative 1,000-year lifespan. According to some plastic experts, all these figures are just another way of saying a really, really, and I'll add on, really, 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 really long time. So could be looking at bioplastics, biodegradable, compostable products, right? Hemp, again, I'll throw out there. So continuing, got a lot of resources. I had these loaded, getting close to the end. So can plastic-eating superenzymes solve our destructive plastic problem? This is on cas.org. Right? Sticks. Plastics may take hundreds of years to degrade, and with production of astronomical levels, plastic pollution is one of the most pressing environment, right? A staggering 150 million tons of plastic finds its way to a landfill or is released into the environment annually. Over 8 million tons are transported by rivers into the world's oceans. Most of this does not degrade, but simply breaks down into microparticles. These well-documented microplastics are found in the ocean water, within marine animals, and even deep inside gastroenteric systems of humans. Plastic pollution is one of the most critical environmental issues facing humankind today, and researchers have been busy looking for answers to this perplexing plastic problem. Depolymerization, solving the polymer recycling conundrum. Plastics are made of polymers, long chains created by repeating monomer blocks. Most of the widely used plastics are either thermoplastic or thermosetting. Thermoplastics such as acrylic, polyamide, and polyethylene become soft and moldable at high temperatures and harden when cooled. This property makes them relatively easy to recycle because they can be softened and remolded into new products, although quality decline limits benefit. Thermosetting plastics like polyurethane, epoxy resin, and melamine resin harden when heated and almost impossible to recycle. The challenges faced by recycling both thermoplastics and thermosets mean that all plastics will eventually be destined to contribute to environmental contamination. To attain ideal recycling with subsequent reuse in new products, waste plastics need to be returned to their original monomers through a process called depolymerization. This critical technical advance needed to enable global circular materials This is a critical technical advance needed to enable a global circular materials economy. In biological systems, complete depolymerization to monomers can be necessary for microbial uptake and growth. To achieve depolymerization, scientists have looked to nature, searching for microbial enzymes that can break down plastics. In 2012, researchers, and I've touched on this already, the Osaka University discovered an enzyme in a compost heap that can break down one of the world's most used plastics, polyethylene terephthalate, or PET. CAS registry number 25038-59-9. Formula, open bracket, C10H8O4, close bracket, N, close bracket. The enzyme known as leaf branch composite cutinase, or LLC, not limited liability corporation, okay, it's leaf branch compost cutinase, breaks the bonds between PET monomers, but it is intolerant to the 65 degrees Celsius softening temperature of PET, denaturing after a few days of working at this temperature and limiting its industrial practicability. Since depolymerization can only take place in molten plastic, enzymes must be stable at increased temperatures. So we'd have to somehow collect all of it into one location, and then we'd have to depolymerize it at increased temperatures. Molten. PET is a thermoplastic and one of the most widely used polyesters. Worldwide PET production, and right, it's static. A lot of this stuff is electrostatic, like it's conductive, I believe, some of these plastics. Continuing. I could be wrong, but whatever. Let's continue. Like, you put it in water, it'll come to you. You get a piece of this plastic, and you put it in a piece of water, and you stick your finger in the water next to it, or even, I don't even think you gotta put it next to it, you can just, or in the water, you can just put it next to it, but. Worldwide PET production grew in 42 million tons in 2014 to 50 million tons in 2016. So, in 2014, in 2 years, it went from 42 million tons to 50 million. So, it increased by 8 million tons in 2 years. And is set to reach 87 million tons by 2022. Holy smokes. This synthetic polymer is manufactured from petroleum-derived terephthalic acid, or TPA, and ethylene glycol, e.g. PET is a versatile polymer that can be made transparent, opaque, or white in color depending on the crystalline structure and particle size. It is widely used in producing clothing fibers and containers, including water bottles. Non-oriented PET can be thermoformed or molded to manufacture other packaged products such as blister packs. Finding an effective way to depolymerize PET will be an important milestone in the journey towards true plastic recycling and resulting in environmental protection. PET biodegradation has been extensively studied because esterase enzymes that split esters into acid and an alcohol, are abundant in nature. Reports on biological degradation of PET or its utilization to support microbial growth are, however, infrequent. Which is weird. Some organisms from filamentous group fungi, Fusarium oxysporum and Fusarium solani, have been grown on a mineral medium containing PET yarns. In 2016, Yoshida et al. Reported the discovery of characterization of the soil bacterium strain Ideonella sakiensis 201F6, found growing in PET-contaminated sediment near plastic recycling facility in Japan. This gram-negative aerobic rod-shaped bacterium has the remarkable ability to use PET as its major carbon and energy source for growth. I. sakiensis employs a two-enzyme system to depolymerize PET to its building blocks TPA and EG. Again, TPA is the oh my gosh, right? Petroleum-derived so it's petroleum-derived terephthalic acid. So ethylene glycol and terephthalic acid. And so they're okay. TPA and EG are further catabolized to carbon and energy source. One of the two enzymes, ISF6_4831 protein, hydrolyzes and breaks the ester linkages. And we break down the body like it's crazy. ISF6_4831 protein. One of two enzymes, ISF6_4831 protein, hydrolyzes and breaks down ester linkages. With a preference of aromatic rather than aliphatic esters and a specific inclination towards PET or PT, as it designed as PET hydrolase PETase. PETase enzyme and I. sakiensis as a cutinase-like serine hydrolase that attacks the PET polymer, releasing bis-2-hydroxylethyl terephthalate BHET mono 2-hydroxyethyl terephthalate MHET or TPA. PETase further cleaves BHET to MHET and EG. The second enzyme, ISF6 and O224 protein, MHET hydrolase, MHETase, further hydrolyzes the soluble MHET to produce TPA and EG. Both enzymes are required, like synergistically, to enzymatically convert PET to its own two environmentally benign monomers, TPA and EG4, making it possible to fully recycle PET. I'm going to download that image. There you go. So we got this. We're probably going to set this as the thumbnail. So PET depolymerization scheme. PETase catalyzes the depolymerization of PET to bis 2-hydroxyethyl TPA BHET mono 2-hydroxyethyl. Right, I already went through this. And then metase converts met to monomers TPA to ethylene glycol. PETase mutant supersized PET degradation capability. Sequence of structural studies of PETase. I know this isn't exactly on dioxin, but it's you got polyethylene glycol in your vegetable glycerin mixed fruity to flavored vaping products, and then you got ethylene glycol in your machine products, and even in your plastics. So, sequence and structural studies of PETase enzyme highlight similarities to cutinase enzymes evolved by many bacteria to break down cutin, a natural waxy polymer that forms part of the protective cuticle in many plants. Crystal structural analysis of biochemical tests revealed that PETase, and I think that's I-sachiensis or L-sachiensis, 2 has an open active architecture and binding site that likely operates along the canonical serine hydrolase catalytic mechanism. Based on the structural modifications in PETase and homologous, right? That means, last time I checked, homologous means relatively relatable, right? It's similar in form, similar in chemical structure, having same relation, related position, and structure. Yep, here we go. Pairing at meiosis and having the same structural features and patterns of genes. And that, again, is slipping away. So based on the structure modifications of PETase and the homologous, right, and the similar cutinase active site cleft, PETase variants have now been produced and tested for PET degradation, including a mutant with the double mutation distal to the catalytic center. The area is hypothesized to be capable of amending important substrate binding intersections. The double mutant based on cutinase architecture was found to exhibit enhanced PET degradation capacity relative to wild-type PETase, and patent has now been filed. So a lot of stuff going on using enzymes to break down bonds of these chemical plastics and like poly, like, come on, right? PCBs, PEF, right? Interesting, super enzyme not only depolymerizes PET but also works on PEF, polyethylene furanoate, a sugar-based bioplastic used in beer bottles. Bada boom, bada bing. The enzymatic deconstruction of some natural polymers, such as cellulose and chitin, is achieved in nature by mixtures of synergistically acting enzymes secreted from microbes. These natural microbial systems have evolved over time to optimally degrade such polymers. It appears that some soil bacteria, such as I or L. sachiensis, have evolved in a similar way to utilize a polyester substrate with the 2-enzyme system. Unlike natural degradation, which can take centuries, the superenzyme can convert PET back to monomers in just a few days, although this is too slow to be commercially viable, they keep saying. Right? So in 2020, a major advance saw scientists identifying another enzyme that can degrade PET in just 10 hours. Which screened a large variety of bacteria and enzymes, potentially candidates, including leaf branch composites cutinase, LCC, that was first discovered in 2012. Hundreds of mutant PET hydrolase enzymes were produced by varying amino acids at the binding site and improvising thermal stability. Bacterial mutants were then screened to identify efficient PET decomposers, right? So we want high thermal stability to be able to get into it, to get rid of it. That's what we're working with. That's what I'm getting. After running this process for multiple rounds, a mutant enzyme was isolated that is 10,000 times more efficient in degrading PET than the native LCC. It is also stable at 72 degrees Celsius, close to the melting temperature of PET. The finding, right, that's what we're saying. So we want something more durable that can deal with this right, this high temperature. The finding can contribute significantly towards attaining the infinite recycling of PET and already at a pilot industrial stage. We are only seeing a tip of the iceberg of possibilities that these microorganisms and their enzymes can offer. Most plastics are derived from fossil. I don't like to use that word, fossil fuels. I don't believe that word. John B. Wells runs a podcast. Just recently, in the last couple of weeks, he had a show that talked about fossil fuels with someone. It's not fossil fuels. It's everywhere. This stuff is everywhere, man. It's not from fossils, from what I've read, and there's videos on it too. Continuing, it's derived from oil and finite in their creation. Yet not true. I don't believe that. Plastic pollution I've heard this black water or Earth's blood. It's everywhere, man. It's everywhere, and we frack and drill and pollute with it because we don't know how we're dangerous, and it's what we do because we're sometimes stupid, reckless, ignorant. Plastic pollution will continue to be a growing problem unless we find a way to form a circular economy. In just a few decades, we will be unable to produce the plastic items on which we depend on unless we can find a way to recycle the waste that already exists. Traditional recycling is not effective or sustainable, and unless we can reproduce plastics to their monomer constituents on an industrial scale, we cannot hope to solve this problem. Thankfully, we have help of nature, some skillful evolution, and a dash of scientific ingenuity. There is a hope that this problem might be solved. In the hunt for novel species to drive innovation, nowhere contains greater biodiversity than the rainforests of Brazil. Learn how data being collected and mined for public use about 15 to 20% of there's biodiversity. There we go. We got some references. Okay, so we got just loads of information on this. Microbiology breaking down biofilms. Adherent bacterial communities embedded in polymer matrix are common in nature and can cause persistent human infections that are highly resistant to antibiotics. Well, there you go, folks. There you go. Recent work provides insight into how these communities develop and function and offers clues to combating them. And we got a bunch of stuff on it. Effects of Candida albicans. This is other stuff. So somewhat related. Similar, right? Yeah. Okay. So there you go. Microbiology breaking down biofilms. PMID is 118-64585. Continuing on. Lifescience.com, plastic eating bacteria. Again, the other ones were, I already said it. So lifescience.com, plastic eating bacteria. Plastic eating bacteria could one day tackle the 14 million tons. We got more than that, right? We're already past this. This is old school news. This looks a little mainstreamy too, right? Keep it simple and sweet. After analyzing the bacteria, right? 2 enzymes. We're already past this. Oh, there we go. And then we got the ideanyl. Right, so it's idea. All right, so it's an I. We got Ideanella sacchenensis. Right, so we got some stuff. Researchers at the University of Portsmouth re-engineered pâtés to create an enzyme cocktail. Digest plastic up to 6 times faster than normal. Right. I think I already downloaded this picture that's not shown here. The combined pâtés enzyme was created with a synchrotron, a type of particle accelerator that uses X-rays 10 billion times brighter than the sun, according to the University of Portsmouth. It enabled researchers to see the individual atoms of each enzyme and draw their molecular blueprints. Scientists then stitched their DNA together to form a superenzyme. The enzyme can also break down polyethylene furanoate, PEF, a sugar-based bioplastic. Researchers at the University of Edinburgh have been using E. coli bacteria to convert plastic into vanillin, the primary component of vanilla bean extract. Considering that the global demand for vanillin exceeded 40,000 tons or 37,000 metric tons in 2018, and 85% of it is made from chemicals taken from oil, using plastic could be eco-friendly alternative situation. After degrading PET plastic into its basic monomers, researchers took the process one step farther and converted one of those monomers, terephthalic acid, or TPA, into vanillin through a series of chemical reactions. The resulting vanillin is believed to be fit for human consumption, though further investigation is needed. That's interesting. That is seriously interesting. That is actually very, quite curiously interesting. Just dumbfounding. If you really think about it, we're turning like vanilla. It's crazy. Plastic to vanilla. What? Right? It's crazy. So they're using E. coli bacteria to convert plastic into vanillin. It's not saying what plastic, but I mean when they're using E. coli to convert plastic into vanillin, which is a vanilla bean extract. Interesting stuff. More references, lifescience.com. Continuing on, news, Berkeley.education. This is in 2021. New process makes biodegradable plastics truly compostable. This is before and after. This is 3 days. A modified plastic bag left breaks down just after 3 days in a standard compost right and after and to the right and after entirely 2 weeks. So PLA, which is polylactic acid, or PLA, ends up in landfills and lasts a long time in forever plastics. It can cause headaches for the recyclers when they're recycling it. I'm sure it does a lot more than that. After learning about World War I phosgene from PVC from it's vinyl chloride, polyvinyl chloride. So people are now prepared to move into biodegradable polymers for using single-use plastics. But if it turns out that they create more, so people don't even understand how dangerous these plastics are. Not even me till researching this, and this is very eye-opening and wowsing, right? It's like wow. So 40 hours at wow. Look at that. That's awesome. So a melt extruded PCL or polycaprolactone plastic filament on the left, with embedded nanoclusters of the enzyme lipase enshrouded with RHP degraded nearly completely into small molecules within 36 hours in warm 104 degrees Fahrenheit water. Photos by Christopher Del Rey. So the new technology should theoretically be applicable to types of polyester plastics, perhaps allowing the creation of compostable plastic containers, which currently are made of polyethylene, a type of polyolefin or polyolefin that does not degrade. Exu thinks that polyolefin plastics are best turned into higher value products, not compost, and is working on ways to transform recycled polyolefin plastics for reuse. The new process involves embedding polyester-eating enzymes in the plastic as it's made. These enzymes are protected by a simple polymer wrapping that prevents the enzyme from entangling and becoming useless. When exposed to heat and water, the enzyme shrugs off its polymer shroud and starts chopping the plastic polymer into its building blocks. In this case, the PLA, reducing it to lactic acid, which can feed the soil microbes in compost. The polymer wrapping also degrades. The process eliminates microplastics, a byproduct of the chemical degradation processes of pollutants in its own right. Up to 98% of the plastics made of Exu's techniques degrades into small molecules. One of the study's co-authors, formerly UC Berkeley doctoral student Aaron Hall, has spun off the company to further develop these biodegradable plastics. Making self-destructing plastic. Plastics are designed not to break down during normal use, but that also means they don't break down after they're discarded. The most durable plastics have almost crystal-like molecular structure with polymer fibers aligned so tightly that that water cannot penetrate them. See, this is the thing. Things used to absorb water and then it would get saturated, and some things could hold it. Some things can hold water, but I'll let your mind think about that. There's other things out there. The most durable plastics have almost have crystal-like molecular structure and polymer fibers aligned so tightly that water cannot penetrate them, let alone microbes that might chew up the polymers, which are organic molecules. So not even these microbes can get in there. So we got a macroscopic crystalline structure polymer chain to small molecule process here. And the enzymes such as lipase green balls can degrade plastic polymers from the surface, but they cut up the polymer randomly, leaving microplastics behind. Shown in the top right. At a UC Berkeley group embedded enzyme nanoclusters throughout the plastic in the lower left, leaving protected by random heteropolymers, chains of colored balls. These embedded enzymes are immobilized near the end of the polymer chains and under the right conditions of heat and moisture, degrade polymer molecules primarily from the chain end. This technique retains the plastic's integrity during use, but when user triggers depolymerization, the plastic goes all the way down the recyclable small molecule byproducts. Graphic by Christopher Del Rey. This is good stuff. Well, I don't know why we're not using it. Like, what's going on? This has been 2018. We got Xoo's idea that nanoscale polymer eating enzymes directly in a plastic or other material in a way that sequesters and protects them until the right conditions unleash them. 2018, she showed his works in practice. She and her UC Berkeley team embedded in a fiber mat an enzyme that degrades toxic organophosphate chemicals, like those in insecticides and chemical warfare agents. See, this is interesting. This is good for everybody. This is all over the, like, when the mat was immersed in the chemical, the embedded enzyme broke down the organophosphate. Her key innovation was a way to protect the enzyme from falling apart, which proteins typically do outside their normal environment, such as a living cell. She designed molecules she called random heteropolymers, or RHPs, that wrap around the enzyme and gently hold it together without restricting its natural flexibility. The RHPs are composed of 4 types of monomer subunits, each with chemical properties designed to interact with the chemical groups on the surface of the specific enzyme. They degrade under the ultraviolet light and are present at a concentration of less than 1% of the weight of the plastic, low enough not to be a problem. For the researcher reporter in the Nature paper, Xu and her team used a similar technique and shrouded the enzyme in RHPs and embedded billions of these nanoparticles throughout the plastic resin beads and the starting point for all the plastic manufacturing. She compares this process to embedding pigments in plastic to color them. The researchers showed that RHP-shrouded enzymes do not change the character of the plastic, which could be melted and extruded into fibers like normal polyester plastic at temperatures of around 170 degrees Celsius or 338 degrees Fahrenheit. So a film of PLA or polylactic acid plastic immediately after being placed in the compost in the left and after 1 week in the compost on the right, embedded with an enzyme. A film of PLA plastic immediately after being placed in compost on the left and after 1 week in the compost on the right. Embedded with an enzyme, the PLA plastic or polylactic acid plastic can biodegrade to a simple molecule, making it promising as a future alternative to non-degradable plastic. So it's embedded with an enzyme, so the PLA plastic can biodegrade. Again, this is a UC Berkeley photo by Adam Lau, Berkeley Engineering. So to trigger the degradation, it was necessary to only add water and a little heat. At room temperature, 80% of the modified PLA fibers degraded entirely within about 1 week. Well, we could also be drinking these fibers then if it's at room temperature, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's ways to, like they're talking about, these people are stupid, right? Degradation was, right, come on, nowadays, situational awareness is crazy, right? Degradation was faster at higher temperatures. Under industrial composting conditions, the modified PLA degraded within 6 days at 50 degrees Celsius or 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Another polyester plastic, or PCl, or polycaprololactone, degraded in 2 days under industrial composting conditions at 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. For PLA, she embedded an enzyme called proteinase K that chews PLA up into molecules of lactic acid. For PCl, she used lipase. Both are inexpensive and readily available enzymes. If you have the enzyme only on the surface of the plastic, it would just etch down very slowly, Xu said. You want it distributed nanoscopically everywhere so that essentially each of them just needs to eat away their polymer neighbors and their whole material disintegrates. The quick degradation works well with municipal composting, which typically takes 60 to 90 days to turn food and plant waste into usable compost. Industrial composting at high temperatures takes less time, but the modified polyesters also break down faster at these temperatures. Great post. There's a lot in here. I could continue, but I'm just going to scroll through it now. We're talking a lot of stuff right here that could be researched on and could be helping people, right? Especially of like East Palestine, Ohio, and people close like me in Michigan, right? We have Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, and it's not far. And then you got Mississippi River that goes all the way down to the seas and into the Gulf of Mexico. People need to be thinking about how to, retaliate against these biochemical weapons manufacturers. That's what it is, man. And we need to figure out how to use what we know to retaliate and help each other do what's right. So, continuing, Exu said that the program degradation could be the key to recycling many objects. Imagine, she said, using biodegradable glue to assemble computer circuits or even entire phones or electronics, then, when you're done with them, dissolving the glue so that the devices fall apart and all the pieces can be reused. It is good for millennials to think about this and start a conversation that will change the way we interface with Earth, Exu said, or Shu. I think it's Shu. Shu said, look at all the wasted stuff we throw away. Clothing, shoes, electronics like cell phones and computers. We are taking things from the earth at a faster rate than we can return them. Don't go back to Earth to mine for these materials, but mine whatever you have and then convert it to something else. Again, the co-authors of the paper include Christopher Del Rey, Yufeng Zhuang, or Zhang. I'm going to pronounce it in English so you can understand. Philjun Kang, Jun Piao Quan, Aaron Hall, Ivan J. Perna, Jian, Wan, Lima, Kyle Zolkin, Tim Lee, and Robert Ritchie of UC Berkeley, Corinne Scown of Berkeley Lab, and Thomas Russell of University of Massachusetts in Amherst. The work was funded primarily by the U.S. Department of Energy, DEAC 0205 Delta Echo Alpha Charlie 02-05 Charlie Hydrogen 11231. It's not hydrogen, but Julio, whatever. Or, Hank. Whatever H is. Foxtrot. Hole. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. So with assistance from the Army Research Office and UC Berkeley's Bakar Fellowship Program. So, you got Army Research Office, UC Berkeley, U.S. Department of Energy, and University of Massachusetts. So, I don't know, my phone's giving me the problems with the water on the screen. So, anyway, lots of info on that one. So, isolated in the River Elbe in Germany, Sphingomonas Wittichi RW1 belongs to a family of bacteria that play a role in breaking down complex aromatic compounds associated with decaying plant matter. And a chemical pollution S. Wittichi, or Wittichii, or Sphingomonas. Sorry, it's Sphingomonas Wittichi RW1. In itself is capable of completely breaking down toxic dioxin pollutants. Holy shit, taki mushrooms. Look at that. Might come from shiitake mushrooms, you never know. Or holy oyster mushroom. Here we go. So, yeah, wow. Mind blown. Isolated from the River Elbe in Germany, Sphingomonas Wittichi RW1 belongs to a family of bacteria that plays a role in breaking down complex aromatic compounds associated with decaying plant matter and chemical pollution. S. Wittichi itself is capable of completely breaking down toxic dioxin pollutants and was selected for sequencing by DOE JGI because of its potential application as a cost-effective means of bioremediation. This is an amazing article right here, and sure enough, it's second to last. This is jgi.doe.gov/DOE-GI-science-a-bacterium-4-breaking-down-dioxins / I'm going to give it to you because this is a really good article going already. Scanning electron micrograph for F-succonegenes during crystalline cellulose degradation. Dioxins are part of what the World Health Organization has termed... Give me that. Wanted the image. Dioxins are part of what the World Health Organization has termed the dirty dozen. Persistent organic pollutants that cause serious reproductive and developmental problems and linger in the human body for several years after the original exposure period. Though dioxins are produced from natural events such as volcanic eruptions and forest fires, they can also be byproducts of industrial processes. So here's something to think about. It's found in volcanoes. Now let me ask you this: volcanoes can break down some of these things. Maybe like we have everything we need. Volcanoes are here for a reason, and maybe these volcanoes require these things. I don't know, I'm just saying maybe they're reactors, maybe they're natural reactors, like these volcanoes. Instead of being scared of volcanoes, we need to understand them. I mean, you don't want to be around molten lava magma. I mean, that's no doubt, no joke, you know. You see what's going on in Hawaii in the last couple of years, stuff erupting and stuff crazy going on. Sorry if my hand keeps going over the microphone. That's why I'm sharing the screen too. In the paper published online in September 10th, 2010, in a journal of bacteriology, a team of researchers including the DOE JGI's Chris Detter and Elizabeth Saunders described the finished genome sequence of S. wittich RW1, annotating that 5.9 million base pair genome led to the identification of a region where all genes known to be involved in breaking down dioxin were located. Additional key findings include the identification of receptors which authors note may be in part explain the unique ability of Wittich RW1 to consume a wide range of sparingly water-soluble aromatic hydrocarbons. So this is filed under Science Highlights, tagged with bacteria biochemistry, biogeochemistry, and bioremediation. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, University of California from 1997 to 23. Biosciences, Berkeley Lab, U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Science. So that was a really good one right there. Really good. Very good one too. So shout out to JGI, Joint Genome Institute, Ado Office Science User Facility. Great information here. So again, dioxins are part of the World Health Organization Dirty Dozen. Persistent organic pollutants that cause serious reproductive and developmental problems and linger in the human body for several years after the original exposure period. Though dioxins can be produced from natural events such as volcanic eruptions and forest fires, they can also be byproducts of industrial processes or train derailments and then explosions afterwards thereof. Again, isolated from the river of Elbe in Germany, Sphingomonas wittichi RW1 belongs to a family of bacteria that break down complex aromatic compounds associated with decaying plant matter and chemical pollution. So SPHINGOMONAS space WITTICHIIR space RW1. Or RW space 1, sorry. It's a really complex name for this thing. Very good article. And last but not least, The Guardian. Nosy, you want my cookies? How superenzymes that eat plastics could curb our waste problem. Nudged along scientists and evolution, microorganisms that could digest plastics potentially create an efficient method for recycling. Beaches littered with plastic bottles and wrappers, marine turtles, their stomachs filled with fragments of plastic. Dude, you know what I mean? Come on. It's not good. Plastic fishing nets dumped at sea where they could throttle unsuspecting animals. And far out of the Pacific Ocean, expanse of water more than twice the size of France, littered with plastic waste weighing at least 79,000 tons. The plastic pollution problem is distressingly familiar, but many organizations are working to reduce it. Alongside familiar solutions such as recycling, surprisingly, ally has emerged microorganisms. A handful of microbes have evolved the ability to eat certain plastics, breaking them down into component molecules. These tiny organisms could soon play a key role in reducing plastic waste and building a greener economy. This does not necessarily cover nanotechnology and smart dust and graphene oxide and graphene technology and artificially intelligent synthetic biology and stuff like that. That's a whole nother subject, working on pulsed electromagnetic frequencies to disrupt these things. But continuing on. And shout out to Independence Podcast or Herbs Plus Beadworks on YouTube for information on nanotechnology and weather warfare or weather modification raining down on you. And Dane Wigington on that matter. And then frequencies, you got Dr. Barry Trower. Then you got 5gdangers.com, vaccinedangers.com. You got the fullertoninformer.com. You got Fullerton Informer on YouTube. So, despite the popular image, only fraction of the ocean being absorbed. So, a huge fraction of this goes to waste. 2016 generated 24 minutes of plastic waste according to the World Bank. Despite the popular image, only a small fraction of this ends up in the ocean. But the seas may still be absorbing more than 10 million tons of plastic every year. As well as the dangers of the plastics themselves, they contain a lot of additives that leach out into the water. Over time, we really don't know what effects these have. Well, it's getting into the turtles and stuff. It's gonna kill off stuff. It's gonna kill. It's depopulating. It's you talk about all the mastodons. We ain't far behind. You keep it up. Much of the rest ends up in landfills. That does not sound so bad, but a lot of it is right. We've already been through the landfill thing. Not enough oxygen, water, and microbes to break this stuff down. Already been through this. Good talks, though. It's good information, right? The key to this ability was a pair of enzymes made by bacteria. Enzymes are complex molecules that can speed up chemical reactions. They are crucial to life. Our digestive system relies on the enzymes to break down the complex chemicals in food into simpler ones that our body can absorb and use. For example, our saliva contains an enzyme called amylase, A-M-Y-L-A-S-E, or amylase, that breaks up the long. So I pronounce things so you can understand. So if you can't read, you can English, amylase. I can, break it up and then tell you it's amylase. But anyway, continuing. That's how I try to communicate sometimes. But that breaks up the long. So for example, our saliva contains an enzyme called amylase that breaks up the long molecules of food starch found in foods such as bread. Ideonella sacchariniensis 201F6 produces two unique enzymes. We've been through this. It breaks down protease and MHAT, and then MH8, and then MHATase goes to work producing ethylene glycol and terephthalic acid, TPA, which are the building blocks of PET. And then break down that from there. Got plastic eaters, which are microbes. Talk about bacteria here. Studied enzymes called cutinases, which is obtained from bacteria such as Thermobifida cellulosylitica, and which can also break down PET. Lars Bank of Aachen University in Germany first heard of this in 2012. He set about creating a consortium of researchers to study plastic-eating enzymes. This became the P4SB project, which ran from 2015 to 2019. Blank has since set up a project called Mix Up, which sees European and Chinese researchers cooperating. Right, this is why we need to work together throughout the world, because we're all trying to do the same thing, right? Make this planet a better place. Work together. By the mid-2010s, plenty of plastic-degrading enzymes were known, okay? The potential was clear to Gabriella Caruso, the Institute of Coastal Marine Environment in Messina, Italy, who wrote in 2015 review that microbial degradation of plastic is promising eco-friendly strategy which represents a great opportunity to manage waste plastics materials with no adverse impacts. So why did Ideonella sacchariniensis 201F6 cause such a stir? The difference with 2016 paper of this microorganisms could use the plastic as its sole energy and food source, says John McGeehan of the University of Portsmouth. That's actually quite surprising, and it kind of shows the evolutionary pressure in action. If you're the first bacterium in the rubbish pile that suddenly has a taste for plastic, then you've got an unlimited food source. Yeah, it could be scary. That's true. So, you gotta find the balance, right? Put another way, the earlier enzymes had not evolved for plastics. They evolved to break down for tough chain molecules found in living things, and their ability to degrade plastic was a side effect. In contrast, enzymes in Ideanella sachiensis 201F6 were specialized. Blank is a different interpretation, arguing that Ideanella sachiensis 201F6 enzymes are not especially good because they only degrade PET slowly. The enzymes are not especially good because they only degrade PET slowly. Wolfgang Zimmermann had far better enzymes at that point, he says. But the excitement of the paper created a huge impact. Suddenly the media had an academic literature really cranked up, and a lot of interest came in. So better and better enzymes, right? And this could be going into gain-of-function research, possibly. What are we doing? I don't know. Is this part of gain-of-function? Is this what they're... I know, because they're injecting stuff in our bodies, man, like mercury and aluminum, so no doubt, right? Let's not even try to compare and contrast that. That's totally different. Alright, putting a bunch of fetal cells and stuff in your blood. Okay, so here we go. So, French biotechnology company run by Carbios. In 2021, it opened a pilot plant in Clermont-Ferrand where it will test a system for recycling PET. Carbios' system uses an enzyme that was first identified in compost, which they modified so that it worked faster and could operate at high temperatures where PET is softer. The advantage of these enzymes is that it breaks down plastic at a molecular level, so it is possible to recreate the highest quality plastic. Contrast. Other forms of recycling cause a slow decline in quality until eventually the plastic cannot be recycled again and gets landfilled or incinerated. Enzymatic recycling, in theory at least, is truly circular. That's what we call a closed-loop recycling system, says Ramos. You recycle something, but then you're able to make something new of the same quality out of that. To date, only a tiny percentage of plastics are being recycled in this way, but the enzymes could change that, which would be great. I think we all can agree on that. And they did what looks to be sacred geometry, almost like a vortex mathematical rodent coil in there with the geometry there. I digress. So, interesting stuff. So he's saying in the next 5 years, we're going to seeing a demonstration of plants all over the place. Still, there are limits to enzymes' usefulness. It will never be one-size-fits-all type solution. And we should not count on enzymes to mop up all our plastic waste. Some plastics are even tougher than PET. Blank points out that enzymes work best if plastic has been softened by heating. That means releasing the enzymes into the environment would not do much good. They only really work in temperature-controlled reactors, so the solution to plastic in the sea remains the same as before. We have to stop releasing it in the first place. Nevertheless, it seems like a plastic-eating enzyme will have a role to play as the society moves towards circular economy, in which everything is recycled as much as possible. In the study published in July 21, McGeehan and his colleagues estimated how much enzymatic recycling of PET will cost. They calculate that it could compete on cost with standard manufacturing methods, which use oil as feedstock. The key is to be savvy where to use the enzyme, says Blank. Some plastics can be mechanically recycled, a technology that is improving rapidly, so they probably are not the best targets. Instead, he says, researchers should go for plastics that cannot be recycled any other way, particularly if they become substances that are otherwise expensive to make. Ultimately, the enzymes have to be part of a revolution in an entire way we make and use plastics, says Ramos. Better methods of recycling are useful, she adds, but they are only part of the solution. It is also important for plastic products to be designed in such a way that they can be easily reused and recycled. That might mean avoiding designs that use several kinds of plastic or fuse plastic with other materials, as these are very difficult to recycle. As with all our environmental problems, there is no silver enzyme. These chemical machines can help us recycle plastic better, but we will always need to pick up our litter. As of 2023 gathers pace, you're joining us from Brazil. We have a small favor to ask, right? Support them. I ain't got the money, but one eye, right? I got 3, so Trinity. Let's go. Let's shine light on these subjects and pass on knowledge. Peace out, much love.
There was hundreds.
Russell Murphy is referring to the fish now belly up in Leslie Run. He and his wife noticed them last night, barely 48 hours after the fiery derailment 5 miles away.
Hey guys, so I'm here at Leslie Run, and there's dead worms and dead fish all throughout this water. Something I just discovered is if you scrape the creek bed, it's like chemicals coming out of the ground. Can you show this? Come here. Well, let me just show this to people. I don't know if you're going to see this on camera, but watch this. You see that chemical pop out of the creek. This is disgusting. Wow.
Look at all.
Look at it.
It's all in the bottom of the creek bed.